There we go.
Perfect.
It's got your
Yay.
notification that the recording is in progress.
Yes.
It's official.
It's official. Cool. So give people another minute or two to log on, and then we can go ahead here and get started.
Excited for this one.
It's gonna be
Should be fun. Craig, I'm so used to having like entry music that you've thrown up with
Would
ours.
you like me to hum?
Yeah, we can spare everybody that. That's
I didn't say sing. I can't sing. Whistle.
you see a high drop off on this one, right when you're humming.
Just start going down. Yeah, I'll spare everyone. We got the chat working.
Yeah, chat should be going. People
Where are
can
people calling in from, dialing in from? I'm in Brownsville, Texas, where it's obscenely warm.
I see a Winston-Salem. I'm right down the street over in Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, hey, Jody.
Looks
Shelly.
like all of these chats are only coming to the host and panelists. Is there a way to update that so that everybody can?
I'm seeing them. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might need to go to their settings where it says 2 and hit everyone.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. Yep. So when you're sending chats, make sure you choose to everyone so that everybody can see where you're from. Or any other comments you have throughout the webinar. We hope this is an engaging one.
And if you have negative comments, just make sure that it's just the host.
It won't let them. All right, let me see if I can change a setting here.
Yeah, it might be a setting on your end, Craig.
Yeah, this has happened before. There we go. See if that fixed it. See if everyone can chat now. Just change that in the 2 drop down.
There we go.
All right.
There we
Now
go.
we're in business. Just
In
remember,
business.
if I see Michelle in here. If you've got any nice things to say, make sure that goes to everyone. Anything negative, send it to Craig.
Perfect. Well, we can go ahead and get started. I'll do a little intro here while everyone is introducing themselves. So we're really excited today to host this exciting and interactive presentation with our friends at Roobrik on the financial discovery process. Evan, if you'll head to the next screen, I can cover a few housekeeping items. Perfect. So as we begin, just want to let you know, this is a one-way interactive webcast meeting, and I think I saw this question in the chat. Only Craig, Evan, and I are going to have video and audio. This is, however, going to be interactive. We want to see you comment in the chat. We want to see you ask questions in the Q&A. You'll be able to interact with some questions and get your competition on. We are recording this presentation, and the recording will be shared along with the slides after this presentation. As I mentioned, this is going to be an interactive webinar today. There will be some participation. You will see a pop-up in Zoom, and you'll get more instructions from Craig and Evan shortly. And there is going to be a live Q&A, but feel free to ask your questions throughout the entire presentation. Perfect. So this free webinar is brought to you by caring.com. For those of you who are joining who may be less familiar, welcome. Caring is a leading online resource for senior living and senior care. Our organization was founded by caregivers for caregivers. Our flagship website, caring.com, was created and launched in 2007 to equip family caregivers to make better decisions, save time, money, and feel less alone and stressed in providing senior care to their loved ones. Today, we have a portfolio of websites and referral services that serve millions of communities, that serve millions of people that are using to research their care options. One of the many reasons people are turning to us is for our #1 review service. We have over 375,000 reviews on our site. We're also excited to share that Caring is now a participant in the Age Tech Collaborative from AARP. Now, let's hear about who you're hearing from today. My name is Megan Mulrain. I am the B2B Marketing Associate here at Caring, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's presentation. But more importantly, I want you to get to know the people from Roobrik who will be hosting this presentation today. Evan is the head of business development at Roobrik, and Craig is the head of marketing. And you two, I will pass it off to you.
Awesome.
All right. Appreciate
Thanks,
it, Megan.
Megan.
All right, Craig, do you want to do a quick intro to how to play the game?
Yes. So if you've never done a Know Your Audience challenge, we are using an app through Zoom called Slido. And in just a minute, when we get to the next slide, we're going to prompt you and we'll ask you to enter your name. If you can use your full name in case we need to get in touch with you or figure out who won. This is for bragging rights, and speed is a factor. So whoever gets the most correct answers will win. But if there's a tie, it will count how many seconds it took you to answer across all the questions. So speed is a factor. So definitely be ready to go when we read the question. We're going to be covering data from our brand new Afford survey, which we're really excited to share with you. But let's get everybody set up in Slido. If we can go to the next slide, and I will start the Slido, and you should receive a prompt that looks like that screenshot on the right side. And if for whatever reason that prompt doesn't show up for you, you can also go to slido.com and enter 3417865, which is the code for this webinar. You could also join from your phone. So if you want to scan that QR code and answer the questions on your phone, you can do that as well. And it looks like everyone is successfully joining the Slido, so that's great to see.
Craig, while they're joining, I do want to highlight the speed is a factor. I will say that if you're not answering them quickly, the last few that we did, the winner went to the one who answered them fastest. So make sure that you are answering as quickly as possible, because even if you're tied, there has been some people that have come out of left field that were not even in the top 5 that ended up taking first because of how quickly they were answering questions. So
yeah. And to really do well on this, and this is almost becoming, we're becoming known for these questions being very difficult. And I think one of the things that will help is really understanding the context for the data and who is taking these surveys, when are they taking these surveys, what's the context for them taking the surveys. So Evan's going to give you that context. You can really understand and put yourself in the mind of the survey taker to try to understand how they would answer these questions.
Craig, how are we doing with signups? Are we good?
We got 57 people out of 94. So there's some people that maybe just want to watch, but definitely do encourage everyone to join the Slido because it's a lot of fun and there's a leaderboard, and I've heard some of you are competitive. So.
All right. Well, for the interest of time, we'll move on. I'm going to do an overview about who this data is. At the end of the day, all data are individuals, at least from our perspective. And so we're going to be telling you a little bit about kind of who's the data that we're going to be looking at. In order to do that, I need to bring us all the way back to the beginning on how consumers are coming across the Roobrik surveys. So Roobrik is a series of engagement platforms that currently live on 1,600 community websites. They are designed to engage those anonymous browsers, those people that are on the websites looking for more resources, but hesitant to pick up the phone and talk to salespeople. I always like to say, I'm guilty of it. And as you can tell from my title, I head up sales here at Roobrik. I don't like talking to salespeople. I want to do my own research. So try to put your head in the headspace of the type of consumer that is like me, who will do everything that I possibly can online before I ever have that face-to-face conversation. So the way we do it is we have several different surveys, as you can see here, that are all geared towards different stages of the decision-making process. That's how we engage this audience. We have recently released a new survey called Can I Afford Senior Living? We know that there are 2 questions that every consumer is trying to get answered. Do I need it? And can I afford it? This survey addresses that second one, which is also the most highly sought after answer. And so this new survey is designed to walk them through very specific financial information type questions that are designed to help build that confidence as they go through that survey experience. So by the end of it, they're more likely to say, hey, I want to talk to somebody at the community. So we are going to be looking at the responses to this specific survey. I will say it is a new survey. It's been out for probably about 45 days or so. So we're going to be looking at 664 respondents over the past several weeks. In one of the questions, I'm going to give you some insight into kind of who makes up the data that we're going to be looking at. So who is that data? One of the questions that we ask is, what care type are you interested in? So these are self-selected. 50%-ish said independent living, 38% said assisted living. Affordable housing was chosen 26% of the time. Memory care about 12% of the time. Some have no idea and they need help understanding their options. About 7% are looking for a life plan or a CCRC, while the other 6.5% or so are looking for skilled nursing. So these are all self-selected and what they've identified, what specifically they're looking for. In that 664 responses, 45% of the people going through this survey were actually the older adult, or they were the older adult looking with their spouse. So they were looking for themselves. 30-ish, 39, 40% or so were the adult child, whereas the last 15% or so were someone else. So whether that was a caretaker, an influencer that is not related, maybe a cousin or something like that, it could really be anybody, but who is involved and has some stake in that. Age breakout. This becomes very important as we're looking at the responses to the questions that we're going to highlight in a few minutes. I want everybody to understand this audience. Are they young? Are they old? What we're finding is for this beta, about 39% were in that 76 to 85 range, whereas 29% were between the ages of 66 and 75. So that's the core data set that we're going to be looking at. So they tend to be right there in the middle. Everybody kind of else falls on the bookends of that. Everybody a full expert on the Roobrik Afford Survey, because I know I am. Hopefully, is everybody ready to play Know Your Audience challenge? All right. Well, nobody can talk back to me, so I'm just going to say everybody except Michelle. Michelle can say let's go, because Michelle is like, incredibly competitive.
Do encourage everyone, like, please let us know your thoughts on some of this data in the chat, because what we usually do with this data is we talk to our clients about it, we talk to the market about it, and we get feedback. And generally that's what we present. This is a little bit unique because this is the first look and our first analysis of this data. So please let us know your thoughts, because your contributions and your interpretations could really help us understand this data better. When Evan starts to read the question, that's when I'm going to open up voting. So there is a 24-second clock. So just be mindful and be ready to answer as quickly as you can. All right. So let us jump
before you do that, Craig, I just flipped back because Meredith shot a question off asking about the percentage from 66 to 75. Threw it up on the screen. So everybody should be good to go.
Yep.
All right. Ready to move on to question number 1?
Let's do it.
Roobrik uses survey responses to bucket prospects into 3 levels of financial readiness. Which level had the highest sales opt-in rate? So let me rephrase that. So which outcome had the most number of consumers say, hey, I want to talk to somebody at the community? It's another way to think about the answer to that question. It's either very likely, or uncertain.
All right, 8 seconds left if you haven't answered yet. And time. Let's reveal the answer.
18% said we're uncertain to be qualified. So,
well, 18.3% was the sales opt-in rate.
Sales opt-in rate.
Yep.
Yep. So what that translates to is consumers who are uncertain, or where we're not sure if they're going to be financially qualified, tend to opt in to talk to community sales directors at a higher rate than the ones who are likely qualified or very likely qualified. I view this as a positive and an opportunity, which is the positive means at least we know that they are uncertain to be qualified, which means if we can get that information over to the sales teams, we can help the sales teams prioritize their time and ask very pointed questions to figure out much earlier in that discovery process the likelihood of financial qualification. And so they can spend more time with the ones who are very likely qualified or likely qualified, whereas they can flag it pretty quickly on for the uncertain and really dig in and help move that conversation forward. The opportunity is, how do we get that information over to the sales teams? giving consumers more ability to be able to engage at a deeper level on websites, capturing that data, whether it's through the Can I Afford Senior Living survey or whether it's through other digital tactics that your teams are rolling out, making sure anytime they engage, we're able to pass that back to the sales team so that they can use that information prior to ever even picking up the phone and talking to somebody. Craig, from a marketing, that's a salesperson's perspective. From a marketing perspective, anything you add?
Yeah, I think this is consistent with what we're hearing. Obviously, during COVID, the leads really dried up. And I think what we've gradually moved towards is a too many leads problem. And this isn't true for everyone, especially if you're using a call center. That pain isn't as great. But there's a challenge that sales teams are facing where it's hard for them to effectively manage their time. Because discovery is time intensive, right? So I think what we're seeing here is this need for marketing-led discovery, where before that lead or with that lead is coming some set of insights or data points so that we can prioritize the leads for the sales team without them needing to do that discovery themselves. Now, obviously, Roobrik surveys are one way that you can do that, but also looking at which pages visitors have visited on your site, or other types of forms where you can collect some data points about their readiness so that you can at least take a guess at which leads are going to be the best use of those salespeople's time. And that's ultimately conversion optimization, right? Making sure you're using the strategic use of your sellers' time, making sure they're working on the right leads and putting the right amount of effort into the right leads. That's going to help you drive occupancy most efficiently.
Yeah, and I want to highlight too, to Michelle's point, which is that most people think they can afford it, or they think they can't afford it even when they really can. There's a lot that goes into this. It's a complicated decision. When I look at this and see that uncertain to be qualified folks are opting in at a higher rate, it probably tells me that they're desperate for answers. They're looking for resources. And when they're proactively searching, they're Googling the first thing that comes to mind. They may be above the age of 55, which tends to go hand in hand with the word seniors. And so when they're looking for housing, they then Google seniors housing. And next thing you know, your community pops up because y'all do so well in Google search. And so they click on that thinking it might be affordable housing. And so there's an uneducated or a miseducated consumer that is proactively researching, desperate for answers, and you all happen to be the first stop. And so from there, it's how do we take them and then get them to the resources that they need as fast as possible, whether that's your community or whether it's somewhere else. All right, so let's move on to question number 2. Who more frequently reported that the older adult is uncomfortable discussing finances? Either the adult child or the older adult. So did the older adult say that they were uncomfortable discussing finances, or did the one who is looking on behalf of the older adult say that their mom or dad or whoever it is they were looking for was more uncomfortable?
Yeah, it seems to be a glitch. No one's able to vote on this one. I don't know why. I'm not sure why it didn't let voting happen. Looks to be a glitch with the Slido. So nobody was able to vote on that question. Yeah. So let's reveal the answers and talk about it, and hopefully we'll be able to get the voting working for the next one.
All right, or to Shelly's idea, let's everybody throw your votes
people
in
can
the
vote
chat.
in the chat. Absolutely. The code to enter is 3417865 on slido.com.
All right, I see a bunch of adult childs. All right, I'll give it just 2 more seconds and we're gonna reveal it. Adult child takes the lead pretty heavily. This actually speaks to an idea that comes to mind from my perspective, which would be the adult child is actually projecting. They might assume that mom or dad is more uncomfortable talking about finances, but it might be because they don't know, or they're actually uncomfortable talking about it themselves and don't know how to navigate that conversation. And so they're pushing that perspective off onto who it is that they're potentially looking for, which opens the door for salespeople is how do you help bridge that gap to facilitate the conversation between the adult child and the older adult to make sure that everybody's on the same page and ease that that comfortability to help navigate that discussion. Craig, anything you'd want to add there?
Well, just an interesting point in the chat, Michelle, awesome contributions. Thank you. You know, that the older adult doesn't want to share their finances with their children. They're actually often more likely to share it with a salesperson than their children. So I think that's an interesting point, and highlights the value of doing that financial discovery, because you're going to uncover things that even their children might not be able to share.
Yeah, I think there was a story that I had heard, or a study where strangers are more likely to tell intimate personal details to strangers that they don't know. And I think that kind of speaks to Michelle's point, which means that they're more open with total strangers than they are the people in their everyday lives. I think we might see a little bit of that here.
Yeah, and agree with Alexis's point as well. Just understanding that family dynamic, you know, before you start communicating with your prospects is key. And our data from our Is It Time for Senior Living survey definitely backs that up, and we've covered that in one of the previous challenges. Let's try the next question. I am hoping that this one works.
All right, moving on to question number 3. What percentage of very likely qualified prospects are just getting started with their research and are unsure about the timing?
I just opened it.
Nobody's typing, which means they're all rapidly getting their votes in, which is good. Speed
Thank
is important.
goodness.
So 17.7%,
10 seconds.
1. What's that, Craig?
5 more seconds. And time.
All right, we will go ahead and reveal the answers. 50%. So 50% of the very likely qualified prospects are just getting started with their research and are unsure about their timing. This speaks to a lot of the folks who probably are more likely to be a good fit for the community from a financial standpoint, being very research oriented. They're thinking ahead. They're trying to get all their ducks in a row before they take that next step, have the conversation, and get all of the pieces put into place so that when they're ready to move, it moves pretty smoothly. This speaks to the planner mentality. And so I think there's an opportunity for email nurturing. There is an opportunity for making sure that we're gathering all of those data points about what this consumer is doing every step of the way, where we can then take that information and feed it back into their experience so that we can continue to show them, hey, we're listening to you. We understand, we know your timeline might not be to move immediately. However, we're still meeting you where you are and helping you through that journey over the next several months. Craig?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, this is the case for relationship-based selling. You know, a lot of your most qualified prospects are just starting out, right? So who's going to build that relationship and build that trust? Because if it's not you, it's going to be the community down the street, right? So taking the time, especially if you know that they're financially qualified, those are the folks that, yeah, you're not going to get a move in the next few months, but it is worth the seller's time to build that relationship and lay the groundwork. So I think that this really, you know, I mean, you could look at this and say, well, this is kind of depressing. You know, all my qualified leads are just starting their research. What is that going to do for me hitting my number this quarter, right? That maybe it's not going to help, but having that longer term vision. And we're going to get to the next question that I think is going to shine a little bit more light on this without revealing too much.
Well, I think to your point of what's that going to do to help me hit my number this quarter, it might not. It might be what's it going to do to help you hit your number next quarter and the quarter after that.
Right.
And so it's looking ahead and really figuring out how do we not just hit our number this quarter, but quarter after quarter, and make sure that we're fulfilling kind of the projections that we're laying out there. And this is a good sign from that perspective right there.
Let's understand more about the timing for this very likely qualified group with the next question.
All right, so question number 4, what percentage of very likely qualified prospects are looking to move immediately or in the next few months? So these are going to be the folks, so what percentage of them have a very short timeline, or tell us that they have a very short timeline, that are also very likely to be a good financial fit for your community?
And 6 seconds left. And time.
Right, let's reveal the answer. Probably about 34%. So over a third of the overall audience is looking to move very quickly. So that 1 out of every 3 of the leads that you get that are financially qualified are going to have a very short timeline. So we need to get all over this, get all over them, get them the resources they need. See, I was close with a little bit of frustration.
Only 10% of the audience was able to get that one right. Most people thought it was 23%.
23%.
Yeah, and if we look at the leaderboard here, Mackenzie is the only person with 3 out of 3 perfect scores. Let's see if she can maintain that perfect score.
Nice. Yeah, I think with this, it speaks to get all over. Make sure that we are calling them as quick as possible. Make sure that we're getting the resources to them. Make sure that we're helping move them through and kind of ease the barriers that they may inevitably come up against as they're making this decision to make that move. Thinking ahead of what are the roadblocks or what are the road bumps that they're going to come across when they're making a decision to move within 2 to 3 months. There are a lot. I mean, anytime you move houses, there's a lot, let alone kind of downsizing a community or downsizing a house and into a community. Craig, from your perspective, this is optimistic. I'm super pumped to see that the number's so high.
Yeah, I did not expect this to be so high. So what we basically found was for this very qualified group, they're either just getting started or they're looking to move fairly quickly. And that middle piece where they're, looking 1 to 2 years out is pretty small for this very qualified audience. So I mean, this just really speaks to the value of like getting that discovery done, understanding their financial readiness, and jumping all over these folks, whether it's to build a longer term relationship for someone just starting out, or you're going to pick up some of these quick move-ins. But this is where you want to prioritize your sales team's time is on these highly likely, very likely qualified prospects.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to question number 5. For survey takers that ranked amenities as very important or maybe important, which decision timeline was reported most frequently? Just getting started, immediate move, next year or 2, or the next few months?
All right, I'm going to launch it. Now, I want to give people a little bit of time to digest that question because it's a little bit wordy. But basically, which timeline values amenities the most? And examples of amenities are going to be the dining program, the extracurriculars, all the different, whether they have pickleball or not, very popular amenity right now. So let's see, we got, okay, that's time. Time is up.
All right, let's reveal the answer. Within the next year or 2. When I first saw this, I wasn't super surprised. When I think of the people who are making more of a longer term decision, a little bit further out, they're taking into account all of the details. That's going to include the amenities. That's going to include all the different financial programs that they may take advantage of. That's going to include probably competitive analysis, where they might not call it competitive analysis, but they're shopping around. They want to make sure that they have not overlooked any possible path that they could have explored. And so I'm not super surprised. Whereas when I look at immediate and seeing only that 18%, 19% ranked amenities very important or maybe important. Yeah, they're making probably more of an immediate change where they have to make this decision, or they've already come to the conclusion, whereas I know this is the community I want, whether or not they've got the amenities. And so there's a few. I think it's even more interesting when I look down for the ones that want to make a move immediately, and how they just don't prioritize the different amenities the same way somebody who's planning would.
Yeah, and I think there's a natural tendency when someone has a short timeline, someone's looking to move quickly, to feature dump and talk about amenities. So just having that awareness that maybe amenities are not front of mind for these folks with a fast timeline. Not to say you're not going to mention amenities, of course you are, but just thinking of how you position them and where you kind of emphasize them, that I think it's important to kind of have that context that amenities might not be front of mind for this prospect that's looking to move quickly. Only 24% of this group, the audience here, answered that one right. But Mackenzie was one of them. She remains perfect at 4 out of 4. And in second place is Michelle. And then there's a bunch of, there's actually 4 folks that are tied with 2 correct responses. So good on you, Mackenzie. If you can keep that perfect score through the rest of this, I'll be very impressed. 2 questions left.
Let's find out. Question 6. Which financial concern did older adults report the most? This is a multi-select, so they can select more than one. Concerned about future healthcare costs, specific budget constraints, prepared but wants to be well informed, would like a general overview of expenses, or they're worried about finances and would like guidance.
I opened voting and there we go. There's some responses. 7 seconds. Looked like on this one, there might have been a little bit of a lag because people couldn't vote for the first 10 seconds or so. So looks like 34 of you were able to get a vote in. Apologies. Sometimes there is a little bit of a lag with this plugin. But
just to be clear, to answer Michelle's, your response is not multi-select. The question within our survey is a multi-select.
Yep.
So if I was the older adult going through this, I could select budget constraints as well as prepared, but wants to be well informed.
Yeah, good call out. I'll make that more clear. That's good. Good feedback. So what was the correct answer?
Correct answer was 71% said would like general overview of expenses. When Craig and I were talking about this, we had 2 slightly different perspectives. I had a more cynical perspective, which was, well, that's exactly what I would tell somebody who is probably about to try to sell me their product or service, was I'm not going to give you any specifics. So I'm not surprised to see 71% give me, I'd just like a general overview of the expenses. Whereas Craig came in with a very optimistic stance on the same view. Craig, do you want to share what we had talked about yesterday?
I think so, if my memory serves me. I mean, I think my take was that this is an opportunity for marketers to make sure that there's a path that gives people all the information, right? Don't just assume that they're interested in one thing. Don't try to guess, oh, this person's a veteran, I'm going to put them into a VA sequence. This person is Medicare, put them in a Medicare sequence. Rather, make sure you have your starting at pricing, of course, on your website, being transparent there, but also let people come into this broad overview where they can see from multiple financial resources. Let them drill down themselves. This is how marketing can do marketing-led discovery for their sales team, by bringing them into landing page experiences or web experiences, digital experiences, maybe using a digital sales room, whatever that looks like, and then letting the user drill down and see where they drill down to, right? And that's going to help you understand, you know, what type of specific financial resources sales can provide to add additional value and optimize and speed up that prospect journey. But making sure that you have this general overview. Not everyone's looking to get super specific. A lot of people just need to understand what do costs look like? What costs will I not need to be spending money on anymore that I'm currently spending money on? How do I understand what those savings look like? And how much more money will I have to be able to put towards senior living? And, you know, so I think that having that general information flow is key. And clearly that's what a majority of folks are looking for.
I think and also making sure that we have the ability to handle that data. The data that they're sharing. People are sharing data with us all the time. Where the industry and most companies fall short is the ability to receive the data that they're sharing with us. It might not be an explicit, here's my name, email, phone number, best time to reach me, and then the answers to specific questions. It could really just be how much time did they spend on a specific page within the website that might be geared towards veterans assistance? What links did they click on within that veterans assistance? That would indicate interest. If they're clicking and spending time, it probably means that's of interest to them, and sales should know that so that they can go into that conversation and really make sure that they're only talking about what is important to that prospect. Do you want to do a quick score check?
Scores. No more perfect scores. We do have a tie for first place. Michelle and Mackenzie are tied with 4 correct answers, and then there's a bunch of folks with 2. So it's going to be Michelle or it's going to be Mackenzie. Right now, Michelle is leading. If there were a tiebreaker, Michelle would win on time. So let's get to the last question.
1 question left. Question 7. Which financial concern did older adults report the least? Again, this is multi-select, meaning the prospect can select multiple of these answers. You all cannot select multiple responses. Concerned about future healthcare costs, specific budget constraints, prepared but wants to be well informed, worried about finances, and would like some guidance.
5 seconds left.
On the polar opposite, 12% of the folks selected this.
And that is time.
Michelle's
Really
hard.
even distribution of answers. So people weren't really sure here.
So the answer is concerned about future healthcare costs. So when Craig and I were reviewing this, I had noticed something that was interesting because one of our other questions in one of our other surveys asks a similar version of this question, but coming at it from a different perspective, where we're not entering this conversation through a financial lens, we're actually entering it from a care needs lens. So let me elaborate on that. So with this survey, consumers can enter this experience. They're already coming thinking about affordability, financials, all of that type of stuff. The afterthought might be, what type of care need do I need? Whereas our other surveys come at it from, they found it, they saw, is senior living right for me, or is it the right time for senior living? They're entering it from a care needs perspective. When we asked this question, having teed them up a little bit different, we actually found in the other survey that current or future care needs is actually selected 24% of the time, whereas when you come at it from a financial perspective, it's only selected 12% of the time. And so that was interesting to me because
you know what might be happening, Evan? So the senior living survey, we know about a third of those folks are looking for independent living, roughly, right? This survey was 50%, so this might be a little bit more of a lifestyle-driven survey taker, as opposed to a healthcare needs driven survey taker. So that might account for the difference. But again, this is early data, and we're still trying to understand what some of this data means.
Yeah, Michelle's point is wondering if they don't understand that healthcare costs aren't just doctors and meds, could be a piece of that. I think what I liked about this, and that is totally true, which is it is early data. What I really wanted to do here is make sure that I left that question with everybody. So I want to know what everybody's thoughts were. So thank you, Michelle, for throwing in your thoughts. To Craig's point earlier, which was this is all new data. We don't have a ton of strongly formed opinions yet. Where we start to form our opinions is based on the feedback that we get from you all. So if you have thoughts or feedback or question or opinions on this specific piece or anything that we covered today, share it with us. We'd love to hear it because that's how we continue to make our products useful. That's how we continue to make sure that we move them forward and we get you all the information that you need to help make better conversations with the prospects coming over. And so with that, we're going to wrap it up with.
You want to show the final leaderboard?
And the winners are, go ahead, Craig.
Here we go. Michelle with 4 out of 6 and completed her answers in 58 seconds. She is our winner. Mackenzie in second place. Brody in third with 3 correct answers. And then we got Kasara and Shelly in 4th and 5th. So thank you to everyone for participating. We're not quite done. We want to share more about our Roobrik Afford survey with you all in case anyone is interested in understanding more about how it helps prioritize leads without asking for any numbers, which is a very different approach to maybe the financial calculators out there. I think that's one of the other things that this data points to that's unique about the Roobrik Afford product is that if you're early in your journey, you know, asking about financial questions without them needing all their financial statements and providing financial details is attractive. And also for adult children that don't have access to maybe their parents' detailed financial statements, having a more qualitative, conversational approach to doing financial discovery, I think is attractive to folks that are early in their research journey.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of times when people are either early in the research journey or if they're looking on behalf of somebody else, they don't always know what's in mom and dad's accounts, or they don't always know how to find what's in their immediate accounts. And so they might not be ready to give that information right off the bat. which is exactly why we built and launched the Roobrik Afford Survey, which is how do we get to the financial readiness or the financial indicators of qualification without actually asking them what's in those accounts and understanding what is the income and all that stuff. So as we want to introduce the idea where what the Roobrik Afford Survey is designed to do is help sales teams all over the country who are utilizing these surveys understand where into these 3 different buckets do prospects tend to fall. It is designed to help you understand and prioritize this lead may or may not be more likely to be financially qualified, which then can influence the way you reach out to that prospect. If it's uncertain, we know we need to do a little bit more digging to be able to figure out the qualification. Whereas if it's very likely, can probably proceed pretty clearly with asking having a very specific conversation around, okay, they're probably going to be a good financial fit for our community. So it is helping sales teams prioritize their time so that they're spending more time with the ones that are a better fit for the community. We're trying to take this big wide world of financial conversation. It is a highly complex, highly customized decision, or the ability to be able to afford a community is complicated. There's a lot of different resources, competing resources that consumers can turn to. So we're trying to take this big wide world of financials and distill it down into an easy to digest report that really helps them think through all of the ins and outs of being able to afford a community and help them move forward with more confidence. At the end, we're going to give them a dashboard ultimately where we can where they can begin to really dig down deep and understand all the different resources that are out there. It is not a calculator. There are no numbers. They do not have to put in any specific financial information. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that everybody who's involved in the decision-making process has an easy way to be able to share what information they have and also be able to get pretty quickly their likelihood to financial readiness. So some of the questions that we introduce are really just questions like this, which indicate, how does mom pay for unexpected medical expenses? Does she have savings? Is really what we're getting at there. Is she a planner? Can she be able to handle this when something comes up? Whereas if she didn't, it might be an indication that it's more reactionary, and it might be a lower indication of her being financially qualified. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is take the consumer that comes to the website. We're trying to educate them on all the different things that they need to understand as they're moving through this journey. Once we've got them educated, the next step is we need to validate their feelings. We need to help empower them as they move through this decision-making process. And as they are moving through this funnel, be able to nurture them every step of the way with whatever touch they ultimately need. Throughout that process, we're gathering data every step of the way. We then take all of the data that we've gathered, package it up into a nice little package, hand it off to the sales team and say, here's your lead. They're more or less likely to be financially qualified. Here's what their care needs score looks like. Take all this information and have a really good conversation with them. Ultimately, convert them to tours at higher rates, convert them to move-ins at higher rates.
The reason I love this slide in particular, and what I love about the Roobrik Afford Survey, is that you can use it anywhere in your funnel or across that prospect journey. This makes, you can use this as late stage discovery before you're going to have a tour. You can ask someone to go ahead and fill out this survey so we can meet you where you are and provide the most value when you come to visit. Or you can use this at the very top of the funnel when people are just starting to think about senior living and trying to understand what it costs and how they can afford it. So this is one of those really, really useful type of offerings and digital experiences, so to speak, that really you can plug and play across that entire prospect journey, using it in nurture, using it for lead prioritization or lead scoring. It's very versatile.
All right. And now to kick it back over to the caring team.
Thank you guys. That was incredibly insightful. And I know I had a lot of fun playing along. It definitely looked like it was getting competitive in there. But I was giving it some time to see if anybody had any additional questions, but it looks like people were really engaged throughout the challenge. So I just want to thank Craig and Evan for coming on today and hosting and sharing their information with us and hosting their challenge. I want to thank everybody who has participated, who was listening in. Thank you for that. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are recording this presentation. The recording and the slides will go out at some point over the next few days. There's also going to be a survey that pops up when you exit the webinar. If you could fill that out, we'd love to hear your feedback, how you think this did, and it'll help kind of shape future webinars and different topics that we'll cover. There are more resources at our industry website, partners.caring.com. You can also head to Roobrik.com to learn more about some of the products that they have highlighted today. And unless anybody has anything else, I am going to let you all get back to a incredible day of serving seniors.
We'd love to connect with anyone here on LinkedIn. You can find Evan and I on LinkedIn, or you can go to Roobrik.com and fill out a contact us form or a demo request, or you can email sales@Roobrik.com. We'd love to hear from everybody.
Okay.
Thanks for all the great engagement. That was fun.